LADYBEARD, thanks for joining us, mate.
Todd Eastman, wonderful to be here, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Just tell us how you got into wrestling. I mean, yours was a sort of a different path.
That's right,
to a lot of other people.
So I started life as a professional actor and stuntman. So I trained martial arts for several years, and I went to acting school and everything. And so that's what I was doing professionally. And I was living in Hong Kong. I moved to Hong Kong back in 2006. I was living there. I was doing stunts and acting in Hong Kong movies and TV and things like that, and doing voices for cartoons. And at a heavy metal show one night, I saw a guy wearing a t-shirt that said Hong Kong Pro Wrestling Federation. And I went and spoke to him, and he said, well, you should come down to training. And so I went down to training because of my martial arts and stunts background. A lot of the techniques I learned reasonably quickly, and 2 months later I was on shows.
So, barely any real training.
Pretty much barely, that's right. So I was very green when I actually got into the ring.
Were you always LADYBEARD from the start, or would you come out as a normal guy?
No, I was LADYBEARD from match one. So what happened was I've worn dresses for several years. Exactly right. Well, it's good fun. You know? This is the thing. A lot of the time people think there's something sinister behind it. I think there's some strange statement I'm trying to make, or I have some strange suppressed sexuality or something like this. It's funny. That's the end of the story, you know what I'm saying? So I've worn dresses for years to parties and to, rock concerts and things like this because it's good fun. And so at the time in Hong Kong, I had just started going to heavy metal shows and also go out clubbing wearing chicks' clothes, right? And it was great because Cantonese culture, Chinese culture, is far more conservative than Western culture, right? So it means that over there, like here, if a dude puts on a dress, it's funny, but it's kind of like, okay, cool. Like,
you're a bit, meh.
Yeah, but it's not really a big deal, you know? No. A dude turns up in a dress and you're like, oh, that's funny, cool. But that's the end of the story. Over there in Hong Kong, I would turn up in a dress and people would just lose their minds. They would be like, you are the most crazy, most hilarious person I've ever seen in my life. Why are you wearing a dress? This doesn't make sense. It was awesome. So I just started partying and whatnot, wearing dresses. And it was going very well. I was getting lots of attention, having a great time. And people would ask me all the time, what's your name? What's your name? I got asked it every 5 seconds. And so I came up with this name, LADYBEARD. And it came from actually the Cantonese name, Wu Sao Lai. Wu Sao means beard, and Lai means girl in Cantonese, right? So I think I came up with the English name first, and then I translated it to Chinese, and so it worked in both. And I went, well, that sounds like a good name. So I started telling people my name was Wu Sao Lai, or LADYBEARD. Then when I started wrestling, they were like, okay, you're gonna need a gimmick. And I said, just given the fact that I had such a good response to it from people walking around.
Dressing. I mean, you already had gear.
Exactly right, exactly. I already had gear. So I was like, what if I call myself Solo and I'm a cross-dresser? And they said, okay, you weirdo. So first match I was planning to wrestle heel. And so I came out, because my attitude was, because I didn't properly understand Chinese culture at this stage, so my attitude was, I'm this white guy speaking bad Cantonese, covered in hair, wearing a dress, everyone's going to think I'm a knob, right? No. I came out, they all loved it. Yeah.
It's sort of the same reaction from, were you surprised at the popular reaction you got just in your first, without even a promo, without any setup at all, you've just come out and the crowd immediately just fell in love with you. Does it shock you that happens everywhere you go, pretty much?
Bless them. Bless them. In Australia, I was actually really surprised, to be honest. Because, like I say, I designed the character originally to be heel, because I still have my Australian sensibilities. And it seemed to me if I did the character in Australia, it would be a heel character. Like, I'd get booed for being the guy wearing the dress, you know what I mean? And it worked out well in Hong Kong. When I came back here to wrestle, I was actually very worried that I'd try and be over as a face and it wouldn't go down well, and I'd have to heel turn and all this kind of stuff. But no, I was so happy with the reaction I got in my first match, my early matches with RCW.
Yeah.
I was so happy that the Australian audience could deal with it. I remember my first match I came out and there was a little bit of, what the hell is this, from the audience. But then by the end of the match, they seemed to be behind me. So very happy, very grateful as well. That's how it went down.
So how did you actually hook up with RC Dad? Because I'd been away for a while, and when I came back in, I'd been on holidays, I think. When I came back in, you were already here. You're entrenched. It was like you'd been here for years. I'm like, I haven't even met this guy. I mean, like your first match, you came out, I'm like, I don't even really know how to call him. And that's why when I sat down with you, I said, what do you want me to do? Because I had no idea. I mean, do you get that reaction, like, from that, just everywhere you go, everyone's immediately, oh, come on, mate.
I mean, sometimes, sometimes it depends. Like I say, my biggest experiences have been within Chinese culture and Australian culture now, so I haven't really wrestled outside those two cultures. You know, as I was saying, in Chinese culture, they're very receptive to it. Western culture, people tend to need a little bit more persuading. They seem to get behind it reasonably fast.
How different is the style from Asia to... Because it wasn't really Japan, it was more like your Taiwan...
Well, that's exactly right. Hong Kong and Taiwan is where I've worked. It's kind of... Okay, so as we know, Western wrestling is wrestling for the audience. It's a big performance. And Japanese wrestling is much more technical, and it's much more wrestlers wrestling. So a lot of wrestlers will prefer Japanese wrestling over American wrestling. So, in Hong Kong, at the time I was there, I found that a lot of the audiences really liked the American style better, but a lot of the wrestlers really liked the Japanese style better. So the wrestlers would go into the ring and they'd do these Japanese style matches, which weren't really over with the audience. I think that's also part of the reason that I did well in Hong Kong and Taiwan, because I turned up, firstly I was a foreigner, which is, it's a good thing to be in Chinese culture. Yeah. I was a foreigner doing all my stuff. It's a good thing to
be everywhere in wrestling, really, pretty much. It's an instant gig for you.
Seems that way, doesn't it? So there was that, which helped get me over, but also the fact that I approached wrestling as a performer rather than as an athlete, I think the fans really responded to, because there's no wrestling infrastructure in Hong Kong. Like Hong Kong Wrestling Federation started, and they essentially built a wrestling culture in Hong Kong from ground up, which is actually very impressive. Very impressive. They started, you know, with a couple of guys on some, you know, blue crash mats in a rec center kind of thing, with bits of string to be their ropes kind of thing like this. So they really did build it from ground up. However, like a lot of the wrestlers, like I say, a lot of the wrestlers were doing Japanese style matches. So they'd be out there and they'd be doing, you know, really stiff stuff. What I perceived as one of the problems was the guys in Hong Kong were not big guys, you know, they were all...
What, height-wise or just...
Everything-wise, they were small boys. So they came out and they were, you know, they were trying to give each other these stiff elbows and all these chops and things, but it was two 50-kilo guys slapping each other in the chest. And to a culture with no wrestling infrastructure, like, when Australians see wrestling and they see a chop, they understand what wrestling is, and they understand what a chop is and what's behind it.
Yeah.
The Chinese actually thought that it was all a legit fight. They thought it was MMA, basically. So they saw these two skinny guys come out and slap each other in the chest, and they'd say, why is he slapping him in the chest instead of punching him in the face? And why isn't he doing all the stuff we see in MMA, you know, and Thai boxing and things like that, right? So I think that's part of the reason why I did well as well, because I approached it as a performer. So I was doing lots of comedy spots, approaching it from a showmanship perspective and everything, and I wasn't as concerned about doing technically impressive wrestling and physically impressive wrestling. I just wanted to do things that were funny and things that were over with the crowd.
One thing I have noticed, sorry, is your style is very universal. Like, wrestling nerd that I am, I even went, like, you know, I actually went and researched a few of your matches.
I'm very impressed! Just letting you know at home, ladies and gentlemen, Todd Eastman found a lot of my matches from Hong Kong and Taiwan. They're not tagged in English. They're all tagged in Chinese. I don't know how he achieved it. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
When you're an upper-level nerd, as I am, sir, you can find these little things.
You did well. You did well,
Thank you, sir. But I noticed because you were speaking Cantonese or Taiwan, I don't know.
In Taiwan it would be Mandarin.
Yeah, Mandarin. You were speaking Mandarin, but I could understand what was going on between the two of you.
That's
wonderful. Do you know what I mean? And for me, like, I watch your New Japans and I watch your Noahs, and I'm lost on a lot of it because the commentary is all in Japanese, and B, their promos, there's no real action in it. They're just it's a really bad impersonation.
That's a perfect impersonation.
Yeah, it's just sort of like that, and I can't, and I'm ashamed to say it because I know some of the best wrestling around the world, I can't get into it. But with your match, I knew exactly what was going on. I knew the dude wasn't happy because you were wearing a dress and he didn't want to fight you, but you had a spin kick that would kill him. So, do you know what I mean?
Oh, thank you very much,
yeah,
Todd.
it was
very
great.
nice to hear. Thank you.
So, how have you enjoyed your time here? Like, how did you actually get hooked up with RCW?
What happened was, so I was wrestling in Hong Kong. About 2 years ago, I came back on holiday. And so I'd been researching the promotions in Adelaide, because I'm originally from here. I've been researching the promotions in Adelaide to see who there was and whatnot, because I wanted to come and train. I was only here for 2 weeks, but I wanted to come and train and, get what I could and take it back. And so I trained with RC Dub during that time, and I said, wow, this is awesome. These guys really, really know their stuff. Oh, and of course, the first show I saw in Australia was an RC Dub show. That was the holiday before that, so it was about a year prior to that.
Ah, okay.
That's right. So, yeah, so the process was I came back on holiday, I wanted to see a wrestling show. RC Dub was the only show that was on while I was back, and it was in Mount Gambier. So I got a bunch of mates that I said, road trip, we'll go to Mount Gambier. Watched this RC Dub show, it was awesome, we were all blown away with it, and the other guys were not wrestling fans either. So they came and they were like, this is wicked! And I was like, this is wicked. But I didn't get a chance to train during that trip. A year later when I came back, I'm like, cool, I'm going to train with RC Dub. Trained, had a great time, got to know Chris Basso and Matt Basso and whatnot. And so, yeah, so then when I finally came back here for a bit more of a long-term stay, which is what I'm now coming to the end of, I was like, well, I've got to train with RC Dub. They were wonderful. They were wonderful guys, really good training. I really enjoyed the style. Really like the RC Dub style,
Yeah.
Really like it.
It's a nice mix between your sort of your ROH, I'd almost say, but they'll also go for the family entertainment.
That's exactly right. And I think, for me and my gimmick and what I tend to do in matches, I thought it was just going to be a great place to train. I thought I'd get the skills that will be most applicable to my career training at RC Dub.
Yeah. How much do you think it's prepared you for now going back? Because you're going back to Hong Kong.
I'm going to Japan.
Going to Japan now.
That's right.
Is there any real reason why you're going to Japan? Or
well, LADYBEARD is also a heavy metal singer.
Of
right?
course.
That's right.
Why wouldn't she be?
Exactly. So LADYBEARD, the character started in the ring, and then I started doing this project when this was in Hong Kong, I took Chinese pop songs and I sung heavy metal covers of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So when I was wrestling in Taiwan, I did those shows there too. Then I took the show to Japan and I did Japanese songs, obviously, and the Japanese just loved it. Like, it was well received in Hong Kong and Taiwan, but the Japanese loved it. So I'd seen a market there and I said, wow, I'm going to go and hit this full time.
So is there a thought of training over in Japan if you can?
I would love to, that's right. I would love to. So the promotion I would most like to work with is Dramatic Dream Team. Dramatic Dream Team and Union Pro, because they do much more comedy-oriented stuff. I feel it's a much better place for me to be. I feel, I'll have a bit of work to do proving myself beforehand, but hopefully I can handle that and get onto some shows. How
is it sort of fighting the stereotype of a guy that, like yourself admitted, is more of a comic act, where a lot of wrestlers will come in there and it'll be like to you, well, don't you want to go for a title, or don't you want to progress to, like, for someone like you, and this is no offense at all, like the WWE is not really anywhere you'd want to be, because you're never really going to get past a certain, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, I kind of... Well, referencing my time in RC Dub, I feel I've done quite a good job of getting over with the crowd and whatnot.
Oh, definitely.
And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. If you approach wrestling, like I say, a lot of wrestlers I feel are athletes and they approach wrestling athletically. So what they feel is a really good match is a match with some crazy high spots in there and some, they tope a bunch of times, they do really technically difficult moves. And of course that stuff is awesome, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. But if the crowd's not popping, then you haven't really done your job as a wrestler, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And not to say the high spots don't pop the crowd, because of course they do. But I've found, for me personally, I'm not that talented. High spots are not really something I'm great at. The comedy, however, is something I'm good at. and is my strength. So I feel, you know, that's done did a good job of getting me over in Hong Kong. It's done a good job of getting me over here so far. I'm a bit worried about Japan because it is a much more technical,
much more
style.
serious.
Much more serious. That's exactly right. Much more serious. And the wrestling's much more technical and whatnot. And whilst they do have comedy wrestlers, this is why I want to go to DDT. I don't think if I turned up and tried to get into, you know, Big Japan or something like that, or Dragon Gate, I think they probably do comedy matches at times.
Sorry,
but I'm not sure if I'd cut it. You know, that sounds like I'm poo-pooing DDT, and of course I'm not. They're brilliant athletes as well. I'm not sure if I've answered your question there or not. But
would you ever think of sort of changing your style to adapt to that?
Yeah,
definitely. More serious.
Definitely.
If they said, look, we love the potential we've seen you, but we don't want you to put the dress on anymore. We don't want you to be that gimmick. Would you be open to that, or are you sort of like, this is what got me to the dance? Or
definitely be open to it. Definitely be open to it. I mean, I think it would take some serious consideration to come up with something that works for me as well as the LADYBEARD gimmick has worked. But that's not to say that that's impossible. You know, I've had various other ideas for gimmicks over the years. So
would it still be a sort of a comedy gimmick, or would you go with a more serious?
Well, we'd see. I mean, I think I kind of feel that my place in pro wrestling is as a comedian. Because, like I say, I don't think I'm physically talented enough to be one of the.
That's one thing I will argue with you. So,
thank you. That's
you do have really, really good striking.
Oh, well, thank you.
Your strike, and tonight you did a hip toss into a splits.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone that can do that, to say I'm not really good at doing stuff, I can't really, you know what I mean?
Oh, thank you, Todd.
For me, it doesn't make sense because just back bumping for me hurts.
Right. It hurts us all.
So
we're old.
Get up, you get up.
Oh, thank you, Todd. That's very nice. But I mean, you know, I think guys like Grimm, guys like Mimic, these guys, you know, they really are talented boys. Like, they were born with physical ability. You know what I mean? Like, all the physical ability I have has come just from drilling it several times. You know, just from drilling it over and over and over again for years. So, it's like I say, no, I'd definitely be open to other gimmicks. And if people wanted me to move away from comedy, I'd be open to that as well. I just think I need some serious work in figuring out how to do it so that I could be successful in the approach.
So overall, the wrestling dream sort of thing, like, at the end when you look back, what would you want your career to be known as? You know what I mean? Where would you like to be by the time you said, well, that's it for me, I've pretty much done everything I want to do, I'm hanging up the boot, or hanging up the high tops and the dress.
Hanging up my bikini top. You know, I just want to...
Which, by the way, just quietly, he's been working months to wear the bikini top. He did it tonight. We're very, very proud of him.
Oh, thank you, Todd.
I remember talking to you a couple of months ago, asking you, why the hell do you keep eating kidney beans? It's gross. My goal, he says, my goal is to wear a bikini top before I leave.
That's right.
And God damn it, he did it.
I did it. I'm very proud. I'm very happy. Persistence, children. That's what it's all about. Hard work and persistence. You too can wear a bikini.
That's right. So where at the end do you feel like, looking back on your career, you'd want people to say about it, or where do you want to be by the end of your career?
I mean, I think what I'd like to be remembered for is, I mean, really the mission is just to make people smile. Make people smile and bring people some joy, you know what I mean? I think this will sound really retarded, and I apologise for this. And also I apologise for using the word retarded, because that's not PC.
It's not, it's the R word now.
I apologise. I've been in Asia too long where it's not PC. My apologies. But this will sound silly. But I think joy and the experiencing of joy is something that's a little bit underrated for a lot of people. You know what I mean? If I can bring people joy through my work, even if it's a case of, you know, they come to the show once every, you know, month or something, and I have 10 minutes in the ring, and for 10 minutes I can make them smile, That's pretty good. I think joy is really, at the end of the day, I think our lives are really about feelings. When you really think about it, what's more important than feelings, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why do you want money? Why do you want a girlfriend? Why do you want any stuff? Because it makes you feel good at the end of the day. If I can create just a happiness bomb in people's lives.
Someone to go away and go, you know what? The show was okay, but that lady beer, I laughed. God, that was funny.
That's right. Or I think the ultimate response to the show is, did you see that main event with Andy Voodoo and Mimic? That was awesome. And Mimic did the moonsault off the top. And then did you see the opener with the girls with Demi and Izzy? That was so awesome. They're so cute. And oh my God, Lady Beard made me laugh so much. It's so good. Because as you know, I think everyone has their role. Everyone has their role in the show and also their role within wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? Mine's to be a comedian, which means generally are used to break things up and provide comic relief. That's why we have the term comic relief. It's relief from all this seriousness.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what I think that a lot of wrestlers do actually miss, is that there's a spot on a card for every type of bit. And just because you shouldn't see this one sort of like a comedic part as the stop and that's it, you should try to be as best as you can. If that's your skill and if that's what you're good at, you should just try and work on that instead of going, no, I don't want to do that, I want to be in the main event.
Yeah, I agree.
When sometimes it's maybe not for you, whereas just doing that would probably further your career more
100%
than ever doing it the other way. Do you know what I mean? And changing your style up.
Totally. I think if Santino Marella suddenly came out in different gear and suddenly was a really serious wrestler, how many WWE fans do you think would really respond well to it? They'd go, all right, well, okay.
Yeah, after the because I know in OVW you played a Russian character.
Oh, did he?
And he was like the lead heel in OVW.
Was he?
Actually pretty good at it.
Great, cool.
Which shocked me when I saw him as...
Was he a comedian or was it a serious?
No, he was a serious.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was him and he had Kozlov as his like henchman.
Oh, Kozlov.
That's why when they tagged up in WWE... Everyone was going, oh, what's going on? They tagged up years ago in bloody OV dub.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did he do well as a serious heel?
Yeah, he was actually pretty good.
Great.
And great accent. So I don't know which accent's his actual real accent.
Yeah, no, neither do I. But I think he's American, isn't he?
I don't know.
I think he's got Italian heritage, but I think he's American. He may not be.
Son of my gun.
Get us all fooled.
Son of my gun.
Get us at the line.
Anyway, sir. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you so very much for sitting down.
Pleasure, Todd.
What you people don't know at home is that it's actually at the end of dark days. We're sitting in a small little dressing room. Though if you can hear a lot of noise behind it, that's what's happening. We're avoiding pack up by talking to each other.
That's what we do best.
That's what we do best. That's why I started this whole thing, to avoid pack up. Like, Todd, do you want people to know about it? No, I just want to avoid pack up.
That's what I'm really all about.
That's what I'm really all about.
Avoiding hard labor.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in Japan.
Thank you, my friend.
And I can't wait to see you back in RC Dub. For someone I didn't know you very long ago, awesome person, and just one of the dearest people you will ever meet. And yeah,
that's lovely. Thank you very much, Tom. My pleasure. Thank you for having me here. I've had an absolutely wonderful time in RC Dub. Met some brilliant people. Actually, very sad to be leaving. And it didn't actually occur to me properly that I'm leaving until after the show, when everyone's like, "Man, I'm really gonna miss you, man." I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is the last time I can do this."
I didn't even know until I think it was the last show.
Yeah.
Someone talked to me. I'm like, "Well, where's he going? He's going back. He just got here."
He's not allowed to leave.
No.
Everyone's been telling me for the past month, you're not allowed to leave, alright? We're not letting you. We're going to go to the airport. We're going to stop you getting on the plane.
Yeah, well, nowadays it just takes one phone call.
That's right, yeah.
Dude with a dress in his suit.
What?
There's something wrong.
No, I've had a wonderful time here at RC Dub. I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone at Riot City. For their incredible support and hospitality. And same to the fans. The fans have been so receptive and so kind while I've been here.
You really have risen so very quickly amongst that crowd. I mean, I saw dudes wearing dresses in the crowd.
Yeah, Godspeed! Wasn't that wicked?
I don't know if you heard from the back, but I was in the middle of my intro and stopped dead when I saw them.
Really?
It's like you just see a flash of pink and low cut top and just a hairy chest. I'm like, welcome to...
Awesome. Yeah, bless him. I am Everyone's been so lovely. The fans have been really great. The ladies with the beards on, did you see them too?
Yeah, I did see them
Oh,
too,
God.
yes.
I was
The
happy.
beard's in thing at the moment, so you hit it just the right time.
I did.
It's the whole Daniel Bryan.
That's
you're
right.
getting on that.
I got on that wagon.
Got on that wagon.
I got on that wagon.
If Daniel Bryan comes out next week with a dress, bloody gimmick infringement.
Oh my God, there's going to be a lawsuit.
Alright, thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you, Todd Eastman.